Wesley Hunt writing to Houston area leaders, warning them of protests coming to the city, like the ones taking place in Los Angeles. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also talk with CenterPoint's Vice President of Resilience and Capital Delivery about the company's preparation for hurricane season.
I'm Frank Billingsley. Plus, we'll also hear our conversation with Denise O'Neal, founder of the Fade to Black Arts Festival, who explains what the festival is all about.
And as Ernie, Frank, and I discuss the top headlines of the day, we want your thoughts, your questions, and concerns. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
All that and more right here on Hello Houston after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump is marking the 250th anniversary of the Army this week with a series of events culminating with a parade in Washington, D.C. Saturday. Yesterday, he marked the anniversary with a speech at Fort Bragg that veered into the overtly political as the president referenced a mass protest in Los Angeles against federal immigration raids happening across the U.S. NPR's Tamara Keith is traveling with the president.
Before a large crowd of uniformed soldiers, President Trump said the protests in Los Angeles were proof that uncontrolled migration leads to chaos and disorder, describing the nation's second largest city as a trash heap.
Generations of Army heroes did not shed their blood on distant shores only to watch our country be destroyed by invasion and third world lawlessness here at home, like is happening in California. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not let that happen.
Trump also decried protesters flying Mexican flags and said he wants Congress to pass a law to put anyone who burns an American flag in prison for a year. Tamara Keith, NPR News.
Parts of Northern Ireland are recovering from a second night of unrest. Hundreds of mass protesters in Ballymena torched homes and vehicles. The riots grew out of an initially peaceful protest Monday after two Romanian-speaking teens appeared in court for an alleged sexual assault they deny. Some of the attacks and the riots that followed are under investigation as racially motivated hate crimes. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that, quote, significant progress has been made in ceasefire talks with Hamas. This coming after President Trump told Netanyahu in a phone call to, quote, wrap up the war in Gaza. The person familiar with the matter told NPR. NPR's Hadil Al-Shalchi has the latest.
This week, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with senior Israeli officials to discuss next steps of a hostage deal. A person familiar with the matter who wasn't authorized to speak publicly told NPR that Hamas sent mediators a proposal which Israel is studying. According to Israeli media, 8 hostages will be released alive on the first day of the agreement. On the last and 60th day of the first phase, 2 more will be released. The proposal includes 3 separate phases for the release of hostages who were defined as casualties. NPR has not verified those details. Ceasefire talks have been at an impasse since Israel resumed its war in Gaza in March. Hadil Al-Shalchi, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
From the Labor Department's latest reading, President Trump's tariffs have not yet driven up the rate of inflation as is widely feared. Today, a Labor Department report showed consumer prices rose 2.4% in May compared to the year before. However, the latest recorded month-to-month increase in prices slowed, 0.1% from April to May. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harab. New this morning, former Houston Mayor Annise Parker has announced she will run for Harris County Judge next year, opposing Democrat Lena Hidalgo. Hidalgo is in her second term right now after getting elected back in 2018. Parker is a Democrat herself, so the clash will take place during the Democratic primary. Parker served as mayor between 2010 and 2016 and also served as a Houston City Council member, and you will hear from her coming up next hour. She will be in our studios during Hello Houston at 12:10. San Antonio's Mayor Ron Nierenberg says he did not request nor has he been in contact with the office of Governor Greg Abbott about the deployment of Texas National Guard troops in San Antonio. 2 peaceful protests are planned for downtown San Antonio tonight and on Saturday. Nierenberg says he understands why protests are happening, but he says violent outbursts are counterproductive.
You know, it's frustrating. I think our communities work better when we're working together towards common goals. And I believe everyone's goal is to maintain safety and order. As it relates to public safety, we agree people need to be safe.
San Antonio Police Chief William McManus says he has not been contacted by the governor's office or the Texas National Guard about the deployment. A statement from Abbott says the deployments across Texas are to ensure peace and order. Flights are halted right now at George Bush Intercontinental Airport due to the threat of severe weather in the area. Slow-moving storms are expected leading into the afternoon, producing multiple rounds of rain. The National Weather Service says they're expecting on average up to 2 inches of rain. Some areas could get 4. Street flooding is possible in the areas that are hardest hit. 30 to 40 mile per hour winds are possible, and if the storms do become severe, we could see 60 mile an hour winds in isolated spots. For those closer to the coast like Galveston, there is an isolated threat of tornadoes as well. Game 2 between the Astros and White Sox scheduled for tonight. Houston lost to Chicago 4-2 yesterday. I'm Matt Harrod, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Council for Interior Design Qualification, whose certified designers work to protect occupants through the design of code-compliant and accessible environments. Learn more at cidq.org/NPR.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
If you are watching us on YouTube right now, you just saw a beautiful performance from me of pointing at Frank's laptop, telling him to turn off the speakers. Like, turn off your speakers, turn them off.
If you ever wonder if we get along or like each other, no, we don't.
No, we never sit in silence when we're in front. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hello Houston.
It's hell outside. Have you seen that sky?
We're going to get that 1 second. Watch us on YouTube. Ring the bell. Subscribe. Like us. Okay, Frank, has the world come to an end?
No,
it's scary
not.
out there.
It is. It's a big system coming through. We just talked about it on NPR and our News 88.7 broadcast. You know, generally, I'm looking at some real-time amounts for rainfall, and generally speaking, an inch and a half is fairly common coming down, but it's coming down fast, so that can cause some quick street flooding in places where you're prone to that. There is a flood watch in effect, especially for northern counties. As far as location, if you went right down I-45 from Conroe to downtown and then continued down 288 to Lake Jackson, that's the line of storms that's moving east at about 20 to 30 miles an hour. Bottom line is it is moving, and behind it, you're only getting maybe a tenth of an inch of rain. So once this line goes through, you see light rain. I think by the time we get to the mid-afternoon, we're pretty much done with it completely. Okay. I mean, completely. But there's rounds every day tomorrow and again on Friday and Saturday.
Are they all going to look like Surrender Dorothy weather out there?
They will where they are located. Like this morning, it was really down to the south of Houston, and then it built north and came through Houston and up through Conroe. So just it's location.
We have a seasoned newsroom, and everyone's face was at the window, like faces pressed against watching the storm come in. Yeah, it looked rough out there, but so stay safe. It will pass. You say 20 to 30 miles an hour. And one thing I always remember you talking about is the speed at which a storm passes influences or affects how much rain we get and all that because of the slow. Is 20 to 30 miles fast, slow? Is that what they usually move at?
Well, that's pretty normal for a good line of storms, 20 to 30. But what's pushing it, of course, are some winds, and gusty winds can come in with that. And you can get 40, 50, even 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts. So it's not coming through like the derecho, which came in at 80 miles an hour and had even 100-mile-an-hour winds downtown. We'll be talking to CenterPoint about that. Are we ready for those kind of storms? So it's not one of those, but 20 to 30 is pretty standard with a strong line of thunderstorms.
No, I was just always curious because I know that when we had a hurricane that just sits and doesn't move, that's bad. Right, so what is 20 to 30? Also, as you mentioned, CenterPoint's Vice President of Resilience and Capital Delivery is going to be here to tell us about how prepared we are for storm season, hurricane season.
How prepared they are. question.
Yeah, right.
We know Frank is always prepared.
That's what we want to know.
Also coming up a little later in the show, Annise Parker is going to come by live in studio. If you've been following the news this morning, she announced something big this morning, her return to politics, running for Harris County Judge. We're going to find out all of that from the candidate's mouth herself when she comes into the show. So if you have questions for her, comments, thoughts, give us a call, text us, or email us. The number is 713-440-8870, or you can email us talk@hellohouston.org. Were you pointing at me, Frank? Did you have something you wanted to share?
I wonder if Lena Hidalgo, is she still in Paris?
She's still
in
across the pond, as they say.
Interesting timing to make that announcement.
Yeah, I think that'll come up in our
I
conversation.
think we should ask about that.
We should. With all of that being said, Celeste, do you want to take us into the news?
Sure thing. Representative Wesley Hunt is offering federal help for Houston's June 14th anticipated protest. Congressman Wesley Hunt wrote a letter to Houston Mayor John Whitmire and Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo, warning of protests coming to the city, similar to the ones that we've been watching in Los Angeles. Peaceful protest in Los Angeles quickly escalated into violent riots after President Donald Trump deployed National Guard troops to deal with the protest that had broken out over ICE raids. Hunt sent a letter to Houston area leaders offering federal help ahead of the potential protests, and those are expected to happen on June 14th for No Kings. In the letter, Hunt wrote, "I write to you today in preparation for the demonstrations expected to be held this Saturday, June 14th. On Saturday, more than 1,800 riots have been planned at locations across the country, including our city of Houston. This day is projected to be a day of mobilization to protest the current administration and its immigration policies. One thing is clear about these rioters. They want mass destruction. We should take every step necessary to ensure this does not occur in Houston under our watch. No Kings is a national day of action for mass mobilization in response to the recent immigration raids in Los Angeles, which sparked protests. Protests are expected to take place all over the country. A protest is planned for Houston on Saturday at Houston City Hall from 10 a.m. to noon. Texas Governor Greg Abbott weighed in and said he'll deploy the National Guard to locations across the state to ensure peace and order ahead of a planned protest in San Antonio. Peaceful protest is legal. Harming a person or property is illegal and will lead to arrest. At Texas Guard, will use every tool and strategy to help law enforcement maintain order. That is what Governor Greg Abbott wrote on X late last night. What do you think of Representative Hunt's letter, the governor taking preventative measures? Are you going to the protests here in Houston, and why? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
Well, compared to most cities, we're usually pretty calm about any kind of. We don't torch cars when we win big, like the Astros. A lot of sports teams, when they win big in other cities, you see these big lootings and parades.
Houston is known.
We don't have those. Mm-hmm. And even, we saw Art Acevedo get down there with the Floyd protests, George Floyd protest, and marching right there with the people that were angry and upset. And I think did a great job keeping things fairly calm during that, which I want to say was 2020.
2020.
Yeah. So, I never worry about this kind of things here, but do you?
No, I think going back to the statements, this is where my problem is the switching words and usage of them. Rioters and protesters are two very different things, and I think we have to be very clear about that. Peaceful protests are part of what made this country. We should be prepared that there's going to be protests. Switching it out and saying that we are expecting, one thing is clear, these rioters want mass destruction.
It's a little strong.
Are they rioters or are they just protesters? When do we cross the line? That's when the violence begins to happen. So very well, you could have 1,000 people show up for a protest, and it's just protesters. Let's not incite something that hasn't happened. Now, yes, if riots break out, if violence happens, of course, we need to take care of it, and the city, the county, should ask for the help and protection.
Yeah, and I think I want to reiterate the Governor Abbott did said peaceful protest is legal. So he is clear on that, and I actually think this is a good example of clear and thoughtful communication. Representative Hunt is in D.C. He is speaking to our local leaders, saying that we are all watching what's happening in California. We understand protests are going to happen locally. He hasn't done anything. He hasn't sent troops. He is simply saying, I am here to help. I'm in D.C. We're seeing what's happening. I'm here.
But, as a reporter, attribution's always important. I would like to know a little bit more about where he got his information.
Well,
the same place we all are getting information.
In the statement you read, he says, on Saturday, more than 1,800 riots have been planned, not protests. So I think that's a misuse of the word. 1,800 protests have been planned.
By whom?
Well,
we're expecting in these different communities.
The No Kings, to give a little backstory, it is a national day of action for mass mobilization in response to the recent immigration raids in Los Angeles, which sparked this. There are protests expected to take place across over the country. Right. And I think that what Representative...
Changing the word to riots...
Pause. What Representative Hunt is saying in here is we are watching, and he even calls himself a public servant like us, must promote law and order to protect our city of Houston and Harris County from descending into violence and chaos like Los Angeles. We must protect ICE agents and law enforcement officers who are being violently targeted through acts of domestic terror. He's not saying that is going to happen. He is saying he sent this letter. We're watching it. We're vigilant. And in the Houston area, these cities will have demonstrations. According to the Mobilize website, we have received press releases from Kingwood, Katy, Cypress, Sugar Land, downtown Houston, and League City. So this is a national mobilization.
But I'm assuming what you read, the quote, I write to you today in preparation of demonstration. On Saturday, more than 1,800 riots have been planned. That's where I have issue. Why is he calling it riots and not protests?
I still want to know where he got 1,800 from.
Right. But that's my
concern.
If the governor said
the
use of that word.
I guess.
Anyway, we know our numbers.
And just to clarify, he does say 1,800 riots have been planned at locations across the country.
Right. Yeah.
Still a lot.
But it's still saying calling it riots as opposed to protests. 713-440-8870. You've heard what we're thinking. What are you thinking? Frederick's on the line from Central Houston. Frederick, what do you think?
That's just right out of the authoritarian playbook. They're equating peaceful protests with inflammatory, violent behavior. Representative Hunt should know better, but he's a toady to the president, and he's just trying to inflame things.
Alvin, thank you for those comments. Frederick, yes, we want to go, though, to Alvin. Frederick, thank you for those comments. Alvin, you're up next, calling from the third ward. Boy, I cannot read today. Alvin, help me out.
One line. It says Alvin from third ward. Alvin, what's up?
Alvin, help me out.
Up, guys? Well, look, I've got this first world comment, and that the governor and other politicians should stop being incendiary, and they know exactly what they're doing with the language that they're using, because these are the same people who were in lockstep with freeing and agreeing with what happened during January 6th. We all know that what is exactly happening here are people protesting against having their families ripped away from them. That's actually what's happening. And so then to associate that then with riots, this language is very intentional. These politicians are being they're being arsonists is what they're doing.
I don't disagree, Alvin. To Ernie's point, to change that from protests to riots is
because it means very different things.
Yes, of course it does.
If you are trying to alleviate fear and concern, then they can be protests. They don't become riots until violence happens. Now, should you be aware that violence could come from protests?
Well, always.
Yes.
No, I don't disagree that verbiage is extremely important, right? We continue to see this and how nuanced and how it can affect journalists Terry Moran. We continue to see how important verbiage is. However, what happens if, from looking at it from a local standpoint, let's just say things do get out of hand. What is the first question people are going to ask? Where was law enforcement?
Oh, it's great to be prepared.
I believe any time a protest in the city of Houston, and this is one of the reasons that makes Houston, I think, unique, is that anytime there is going to be a gathering, I believe it's 300 people or more, you have to actually get permission from city council.
Yes.
You have to send it in. There has to be approval. Then the local law enforcement decide, okay, how many officers do we need to have out there? Right. How many people are expected? Again, I think that you can't go wrong with open lines of communication.
No argument on that.
Right.
My point is, when there is a parade in the city of Houston, they mobilize for protection and the possibility of something happening there. So they are prepared. I would say prepare for this as you would for any other event. Now, if you've seen signs or have intel that tells you it is going to move toward violence, you're more prepared. But to conflate it and start by saying they're riots.
Nobody's going to send a message that says we plan on being violent.
Yes, they do. That's how they know when things are coming. They're always the intel ahead of time. If you're planning, if an organization is in charge of it that is planning to do something beyond just a protest, there's usually chatter. That's what they watch for.
And a protest is very different. A protest, a peaceful protest is very different than a parade.
But why
oftentimes
they're kind of the same
protests.
thing.
No, protests are very emotional, and people have been affected by something, and they're getting behind a cause.
Right.
A parade is, the Our Car Parade, everybody can get behind.
The Pride Parade, though. Pride Parade is people are emotional about this, and they're making their presence known.
But even this first line, warning of protests coming to the city, not just telling us there will be protests. The word warning, maybe I'm the weatherman in the crowd. Well, you don't use warning unless you are trying to get a real message out there.
Which makes me think, if you reported every incoming summer storm as hurricane coming, no, it's not a hurricane till it passes certain criteria to become a hurricane. Otherwise, it's a summer storm. It's a serious storm. And
there are different levels of that.
And let's go back to the phone. I think Joseph is next, giving us a call from Tomball at 713-440-8870. Joseph, what are you thinking?
Yes, good morning to all of you.
Good morning, Joseph.
Morning.
I have a family members on L.A., and he was telling me that most of the people who start protesting was homeless people. Our government knows that L.A. is unique in that criteria. A lot of homeless people who don't have nothing to lose, they don't have a job, they don't have a house. They are the one who started looting and everything, and the government knows. And it's so funny how our government, Donald Trump, sit on his office on January 6th. He didn't send no help to the rioters, but now he's the first one who want to do the peace and order. Thank you.
Joseph, thank you for that. We did have someone on the show yesterday who made the distinction between rioters, between looters, and protesters.
And agitators. Yes, so we had Gigi, who is a reporter out of Fox LA, join us, and she made that distinction. She said during that 11 hour, which would have been around 9 a.m. their time, 10 o'clock here, it was noon here, 10 a.m. there in LA, and we asked what is exactly happening. Right. And she made that distinction. She said everybody's kind of right now, business owners are reassessing the damage. People are laying low, resting, getting ready for the nighttime. And there was peaceful protest, and then there at night it gets very aggressive and agitators come out. Right. The president has said these are paid people, which we from what we understand, she could not find anybody from a reporter on the ground.
The White House classifies them as paid. We can go into that in another point. It has to do with grassroots organizations who receive funding and payment, but they're out protesting, and so they get conflated into their being paid to protest.
To be agitators.
Phone number 713-440-8870. We'll grab a couple quick calls, and then we've got to move on. Eldolfo is on the line from downtown. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I just think Wesley Hunt is biased and already labeling this as a riot. I'm 57 years old, father of 3. I'm planning on going out there with my 23-year-olds. I'm keeping the 9 and the 10-year-olds at home where it's going to be safe. It's going to get loud. We're going to be proud, and we're going to take it to the king. And if anybody gets pissed on the other side, that's their problem. but we're not going to be throwing things. We're not going to be inciting riots. And it just gets me upset that he does this. And now I was kind of thinking of staying home. I'll definitely be out there at 9 a.m. and I'll stay until 3 o'clock on Saturday. That'll be my Father's Day. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Adolfo, thank you for that. And let's grab one more. Tim from Spring is on the line. Tim, what are you thinking?
Hey, how's it going? What I'm really curious about is for 20 or 30 years, we've been hearing about the threat of tyranny and government overreach and trampling of rights. And now that it's come to fruition and it's actually here, where are all these Second Amendment people? Though I'm not advocating for violence in any way, where are they? They were allowed up until this point, and it's really confusing.
Yeah. Tim, thank you for that.
I think he's referring to the NRA, which has made a lot of noise about Second Amendment rights and guns and protecting ourselves. And
more on this as we continue on. Continue to keep your calls, comments, thoughts coming in. 713-440-8870 or talk@hellohouston.org.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Nathan Brownell, CenterPoint Vice President of Resilience and Capital Delivery, about their preparation for hurricane season. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
The facts on the ground are that a lot of these communities are not going to be forced into working with ICE. There is a large base of people who are willing to come out and protest and to push back on ICE. You know, I'm thinking of places like San Francisco, Los Angeles, Seattle, New York.
I'm Natalie Kitroeff. That's Today on the Daily from the New York Times.
Did you know 80% of our funding comes from listeners like you, right here in Houston? That's why your support is so important. When you give to Houston Public Media, you're investing in trusted news and educational programming that millions depend on daily. Every dollar you give makes a difference, ensuring this public service stays strong for everyone in our community. Help us support this mission. Give today at houstonpublicmedia.org or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from Pearland, Texas, a community with a variety of living options, from new construction, mature neighborhoods, and urban living, designed for any lifestyle. More at pearlandedc.com/inspiration. Pearland, inspiration lives here.
Support comes from Artec House with Rolling Stone Presents Amplified, the immersive rock experience, highlighting the history of rock and roll and featuring over 300 artists whose music changed the world. Tickets at artechhouse.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from St. Arnold Brewing Company, a place for corporate events on tap, meeting rooms, AV equipment, and full catering available. More at starnold.com. Support comes from Gen Pro, a Houston-based home generator service providing power to homes during unexpected outages, helping with connectivity and productivity. More information is available at genpro.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
We're back. A lot happening, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's hurricane season. We look outside right now and we're reminded that the weather can change just like that. The electrical grid's resiliency always comes to mind. Last year, Hurricane Beryl, of course, caused more than 2 million customers to lose power. And then there was last year's derecho, which was in May, 2 months before Beryl. That was a devastating windstorm that passed through Houston. That left people without power for a week. So how does the power grid get prepped up and ready for hurricane season and other forms of extreme weather? So we welcome today Nathan Brownell, CenterPoint Vice President of Resilience and Capital Delivery. Thanks for being here on Hello Houston. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
So, I mean, I know what we went through from a weatherman's standpoint, that's for sure. It's hard to predict, hard to know. So you really just have to be ready for anything. How's CenterPoint going to do it? I know you've had some experience.
Yep.
So where have we taken that experience and learned?
So every event that we have is an opportunity to learn.
And so not only do we learn from the individual events, we learn from other utilities as they go through events and understand where they're at. So one of the big things that we always do is drilling. So opportunities to drill throughout the year on different types of events and how we would respond, how do we communicate to customers, how do we get material, how do we set up staging sites quicker to bring in mutual assistance crews. So those are types of preparations that we do. Another thing that we do is really kind of rebuilding the grid. When I say rebuilding it, I'm talking about hardening the grid. And so you'll hear like resiliency. Resiliency is really about hardening the grid, and the utilities across the United States are doing this. And so, following the storms of last year, we did some accelerated investments into our resiliency. And you heard a lot of this about the Greater Houston Resiliency Initiative. So there's 2 phases. We actually completed it early going into June 1st. So we installed 26,000 hardened poles, so beefier poles that are out there.
But what did you learn from Beryl that maybe you didn't know before that, maybe should have, but what unique lessons came out of that?
So I think we learned a lot of different things. One big one that came out of there is how do we communicate better with our customers? So I think one of the opportunities was having a more reliable outage mapping system. So we've built a new system. So it's cloud-based. It can hold about 6 times the demand that Beryl had during that time frame. It's in Spanish, it's in English, and we're going to continue to add on to that. So I think that's one way, and we're going to continue to evolve into that, where we're going to get down to the neighborhood level of being able to communicate to customers. So as you're driving through, your neighborhood and you see a CenterPoint truck sitting out there and be like, I wonder what they're going to do. Well, we're going to have a mapping solution. We're going to be able to go on there and see what that work is being done and understand what the value is to the customer. So I think that's one part. Another part around that we learned is how do we harden the grid better. So we spent a lot of time over the last year talking with our peers. So like Florida Power and Light is a very similar peer to us. So they're an area that has extreme weather. So hurricanes go through Florida quite a bit. They've got a growing area just like Houston. And so we really learned from them. So they went through a similar instance back in 2004. And so over the last 20 years, there's a lot of lessons learned. So what type of poles we should be using, how often should we be inspecting them, what should we be undergrounding, and what shouldn't we be undergrounding?
And that's what I was just going to ask. We often hear the conversation around our power lines need to be underground.
Yep.
What percentage of lines are already below ground in our territory?
It's around 50% of our distribution lines are underground. And so that's kind of where we're at. We're shooting to be around 60% by the end of 2028. And so one thing we learned from Florida Power and Light, you can see these big poles that are overhead out there. They really learned that you shouldn't underground those. You can harden those poles, withstand extreme wind by hardening them. It's really expensive to put them underground. You can do a lot more hardening.
It's not only the expense of it, it's harder to fix underground. If something goes out, it's a longer outage period underground.
That's right.
Where above ground, this I learned from CenterPoint. If
Yep.
it's above ground, you can repair it faster and get service back quicker. So it's kind of a balancing act.
It is. And one thing I want listeners to kind of realize, there's a difference between like resiliency and reliability. So like reliability is like your day-to-day performance. So power's on, not having any issues. Resiliency is really about how do we handle extreme weather. So we have this here in Houston. We get flooding, we get high winds, we get freezing temperatures, high heat. We get it all. Like we're
You were actually just telling me that Harris County is known as. Can you tell our listeners about that?
So every year, the National Oceanic Administration, National Oceanic, I always get them. NOAA is the term. Yeah. So they put out a mapping where they look at every county across the United States and they rank them based off of the extreme weather events that they have or that they have. Houston is number 1.
Yep.
So the Harris County is number 1. You know what number 2 is?
Dade County, Florida?
Miami-Dade County, Florida.
Yeah. Well, I'm a weatherman from the old days, so I know things like that.
But I want to give you a perspective of what the difference is. So Miami-Dade is at 75 ranked on a percentage scale. We're at 99.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned communicating better with people because we were using Whataburger to see where the power was back on. Did you learn something from that? I mean, is that part of the plan to just communicate better in that way?
Yes, I think the simple answer is yes. We have to communicate better to our customers. So not only have we've made improvements to our outage mapping, we're going to further improve those just on a day-to-day performance. Not even just on extreme weather, of just how we're out in the communities. I mean, we have a huge opportunity. Like, we have a 10-year plan. We're going to make Houston the most resilient coastal grid in the nation, and we're going to do a lot of work out there. And we have an opportunity to bring our customers along on this journey to show the things that we're going to do, because it's going to make it.
You got to know, there's listeners out there that are saying, I don't care how well you communicate. I shouldn't have to be communicating you. I'm only communicating because my power is going out.
Yes.
What are we doing in that regard?
So, what are you saying? How do we communicate when the power goes out,
No,
or how do we
it's
prevent
that,
it from
how
going
do we
out?
prevent from having to communicate with you? That's where I think most people would want your full attention.
Yeah, and that is something that we're working on, and it's a timing of investment. So we're talking about a 10-year plan of investing into our infrastructure. So, give you an example. We submitted our resiliency plan last year. This is a 3-year, $6 billion plan from transmission all the way down to distribution. So our whole system of how we're going to make it more hardened. As we make things more hardened, it actually improves the reliability day to day to customers. So as we're making things better to be able to take a punch from high weather or extreme weather, they're also going to see the benefit day to day, because we're replacing, a transformer that may have not been in best shape. So it will impact the day to day where customers are going to see a benefit in this.
You're listening to Hello Houston, and we're speaking with Nathan Brownell, CenterPoint Vice President in Resilience and Capital Delivery. You can send in your questions at 713-440-8870. We did receive a text that asks, Nathan, since FEMA is gone after 2025, how will that impact CenterPoint?
So for CenterPoint, it doesn't impact us greatly. So we're a part of a regional mutual assistance group. Some utilities are kind of grouped into areas, and we kind of support one another. And so, give an example from when after Hurricane Beryl came through, we reached out to, we call it SE, Southeastern Electric Interchange. And it's a group of all the Gulf Coast utilities that we work together to help each other. And so for us, as a utility, after an event, we're likely going to need additional linemen, or we're going to need additional manpower, or we're going to need materials, different types of things. We reach out to those groups to bring those in. Well, we help each other back and forth. And then if it's large enough, we'll go outside and go national. So like for Beryl, we brought in over 10,000 resources for that event, and those came from across the United States, even Canada, that came to help us. So we aren't so much dependent on FEMA for those type of resources. We as utilities are able to support each other. I would think that more impacts probably the local municipalities and their support that they're going to need.
I'm assuming you were really behind the bill that was going to really toughen the laws for anyone who messed with CenterPoint or other linemen from other states.
Oh, yes. That was one of the more sad things that was happening during Hurricane Beryl. I'll give you an example. We had a staging site that, we had over 1,000 people there. We brought resources in, getting it staged up. And we had calls come in about they were going to do a drive-by shooting at those sites. So we actually had to close that site and move those people out of that area because of safety concerns. So you think about the people that are coming. I mean, these are mom or dads that are doing as a line skill worker that are doing a really tough job as is, and they're coming down to Houston to help us get power on in a really tough situation. That they need the support to where they don't have to fear for their life. So,
yeah, Nathan, you mentioned strengthening infrastructure in our area. How are you implementing technology and AI to better manage impacts to infrastructure?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. So that's one of the things that we're also investing heavily into is cutting edge technology on how do we visualize data better, how do we predict outages better. And so this is going to help us on emergency response time, identify where the outages are, but also around crew optimization. How do we get the right crews at the right spots? One of the cool things we're doing, so every year we're flying all of our systems, and they're basically doing a 3D imaging of our lines, and we're able to look at where do we have some potential vegetation concerns that we need to go out and address immediately, or this one is going to be, it helps us make data-based approaches, decisions to really address the concerns of our system.
Have you got into drones, with cameras and go in and looking at neighborhoods and problem areas?
We have. We used the drones during Hurricane barrel in areas that were inaccessible for damage assessment. But that is an area that we have created within our organization that we're standing up to use drones as more of a common practice for us. I'll give you an example. We have one utility they call it a drone in a box. At a substation, they have a little box, and every so often the drone pops out of the box, flies down the line, and it takes infrared of the lines, looks at vegetation, hot spots for equipment issues, and comes back, reports it to us or to the utility, and they can go out proactively and address it before it becomes a concern.
And you're going to have to, because you have to be frustrated that we are told to do so many things and we don't do it. But let's go over the list. What can we at home that have vegetation, trees, dead limbs, what can we do to help this whole situation, to help you?
I think being a good communicator to us is a big part. Making sure that you're able to, if you see something, please call it in. We want to know. I mean, we only have so many eyes that are out there. So if you see a concern, whether it's a tree that's sitting on the limb, a lot of times they're trees that are sitting on a communication line and not our line. But either way, let us know. Let us go take a look. Because if it is a concern, we want to address it for the customer. The other part is, sign up for our power alert services that's out there. That's really crucial for customers that want more information. We can tell you whether, your power goes out. Granted, you're likely going to know that. But we'll also be able to tell you when we think they're going to have that power on. So that's going to continue to evolve.
Accurate when it comes back on? I get those all the time from my cable operator or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, it'll be on at this time. And it never is. It just seems like it's a random number. Are you guys really calculating the time it's going to come back?
So we are. So what we've done is we're using a little AI. So basically we can predict where we think the outage is, what the cause is, and based off historical of those, we think what this time is going to be. So what you'll likely see is you have an outage, you probably get something that says, it's in 2 hours, and then you may get something a little later. It's like, hey, it's really 3.5. That's where crew's been out. Like they've gone outside. They said, all right, this is a bigger issue. That's what we've seen. It's going to be another hour and a half from that. And so for us, we're trying to get information out to our customers as soon as possible. That when something happens, that hey, we saw it. We know that there's an outage. We've got a crew that's going to be rolling out, and that's something that we're going to continue to evolve. Is where we eventually be is like you're going to have more knowledge of actually crews.
So it doesn't help for us to call in once we've gotten. You already know it, so us calling is just bothering.
You know what? We welcome the calls. We welcome the calls.
You heard him. He said he welcomes those calls.
Energy partnered on a battery storage project that was meant to help, and it's meant to help bolster Houston's power grid. Have the batteries all been installed regionally, and how is this going to help Houston?
Are you talking about the temporary mobile generation units?
Yes.
That were here. So there's two separate parts. We had batteries. We had large generators that we have moved those to San Antonio. That was part of the plan. We're working with ERCOT and the governor's office to move those out there. But we do have a lot smaller units that we do have stationed across the city. And so what we plan to do with those as we have weather events in the future, we'll be able to move those types of small generator units to areas like community centers or areas that we can get powered up and keep people out of the heat or out of the cold or those type of events.
Okay, we got to wind up. But my last question for you: scale of 1 to 10. 10 we're perfect, 1 we're lousy. Where are we ready in terms of this season?
I think we are an 8 or a 9 on preparation. So we did the Greater Houston Resiliency Initiative. We did a 1.5 years amount of work in 9 months. We made significant progress in hardening our systems out there. We stood up a brand new emergency response organization with a seasoned leader that we brought from externally into the organization. We've created a new meteorology department. We have the resources, the training. We're ready.
Good.
Nathan Brownell is CenterPoint's Vice President of Resilience and Capital Delivery. Nathan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
After the break, we'll talk about the Fade to Black Arts Festival, which is taking place this week. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV 8 at 7, Nature presents the ocean's greatest feast, followed at 8 by a Nova double feature looking at airport engineering and London's Supertunnel. Tonight on TV 8 or stream on the PBS app.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from attorney mediator Ron Bankston, providing in-person, video conferencing, and hybrid mediation and arbitration services. More information is available at ronbankston.com.
Support comes from Gulf Coast Blood, providing everything your group needs to save lives and make an impact in your community. Info on hosting a blood drive at your business, school, place of worship, or organization is at giveblood.org/hostablooddrive.
Support comes from GiveMeTheVIN.com. Purchasing vehicles online with the VIN or license plate and photos, or by bringing the vehicle to Houston area offices. Details at GiveMeTheVIN.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To share your thoughts on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Earlier this week, Frank and I had the chance to speak with the founder of the Fade to Black Arts Festival. Here's that conversation now.
All right, the Fade to Black Arts Festival kicked off last Sunday. It's going to run all this week through Saturday, June 14th in downtown Houston. This festival is a celebration of African-American creativity and aims to showcase the diverse works of Black artists across film, music, poetry, theater, and visual arts. And joining us now to tell us more is Denise O'Neal, Executive Director and founder of the Fade to Black Arts Festival. Denise, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hello, thank you for having me.
We're glad you're here. This is exciting. It took a while to get here, though.
Yes, 2 years in the making.
Wow. So what made you think to do this?
I believe our city needed it. We have been moving forward for the last 13 seasons with our short play festival. And because of the artists that we work with and the research that I had done, the friends that I had made outside of the state, I realized that this was a time to bring something amazing to Houston and put ourselves on the map.
And so you said 13 seasons. So it seems like you guys have really taken off and you've grown. What was your secret behind that growth?
Well, it was a lot of things. Being that close to the artists, you see them, the struggles that they have and the concerns they have. One of them was, there's the economy here is not really conducive to me staying and building a career. I feel like I need to go to New York. I feel like I got to go to LA, or I should move to New Orleans or Atlanta to start my career, but I can't really do that here. And we don't believe that that's true, or we believe that we can change the system where it's more inviting for artists. Secondly, being aware of all the artists that we work with, because over the last 10 years or so, we have employed about 700 artists to grace our stage. Those individuals have it's a melting pot of different people and different backgrounds. And so all of those artists do different things. Some do music, some do poetry, some do film. And so we had done theater, and we said, why don't we just put it together and do a big arts festival?
And what is the process to be a part of it, though?
Well, to be a part of the festival, you need to be an actor that's interested in reading theaters, or you need to be a poet, you need to be a musician. Now, everyone is staffed now, but we did open calls for a variety of different things months prior to the festival. And then if you are, we have 4 or 5 division leaders who have for the last 2 years worked with us to develop the programming. So we reached out to people along the way to kind of make sure that we're fully staffed.
Well, and it runs all day. I mean, you start with exercise at 8 in the morning. Because I'm really impressed by your website, by the way. I went to that, and you could just click on the calendar, and it'll give you times and what's going on.
Yes.
So it says it's downtown. Where exactly?
So it's downtown, mainly at Match Houston, but it's also around the city. So tonight, our partners, Stages, the Alley Theater, the Ensemble Theater, Hobby Center, HSPVA, Houston Public Library, I think we have an extension there. All of those partners came together and said, hey, we want to do something to contribute to the festival. So they're kind of satellite locations for us, but Match will be the main location for all of the activity. Tonight, we have a reading at Stages. So they're a partner of ours. They're doing an extension reading. And so pretty much, all of the main heavy hitters. The Alley has a reading on Wednesday. The Ensemble Theater has a reading on Tuesday and then Thursday, and then we have the cast party back at Stages. Warehouse Live is where we have our mixer. So just sprinkled out throughout the city.
And how did you build those partnerships? And do you feel like the city really has come to support you? Because, I mean, like Frank was saying, I'm looking at this. I mean, you'll have financial coaching, you have a pop-up Zumba class, there is poetry, music, but you also have youth and educational programming. So what type of conversations go into a festival like this?
A lot of conversations, lots of meetings.
2 years worth.
Yeah.
Lots of meetings. And, you know, we plan to do this every other year. So we are figuring out how to build ourselves and set ourselves up for success for 2027. But those meetings are essential because you think you know how it's going to be until you're ground zero. Yeah. It's like, oh, we didn't anticipate. There's tons of questions that I have to answer all the time. But your question was about how we put all this together.
Yeah.
And it's just the vision first, understanding what the objective is, why we are doing this, who our partners are, and then how we can bring them all together. So the division leaders were the beginning visionaries under me. And I said, I can't do it all. You're going to be over youth. And it's a funny story. I didn't even want to do youth because I thought, I can't even keep a houseplant alive. I'm going to do kids and pets and stuff like that. Pets, kids, houseplants, all.
Yes. It's a lot. It's a lot.
And so I said, I just don't know that we can do that. And this was in the stakeholders meeting when we first started it out. Yeah. And there were people who said, no, you got to do something for the youth. I said, you can do it. I don't think I can do it. And they've taken by the helms and just made it beautiful. And along the way, we partnered with Kinder HSPVA, and they gave us their building. And so it's kind of like, well, I guess that's a sign from God that we should be including the kids. And then HEB blessed us with a sponsorship that allowed us to pay for our college interns and then the scholarships for the high school students. So the youth camp is from 10 to 17. We've got some classes that will fit younger kids. The Houston Ballet joined us and said we'll do dance classes. And I said the festival doesn't include dance. That's a whole nother state. And so I said, well, we want this to be implemented for 2027, so we're going to partner with you. So it's about closing your eyes and taking one step at a time, and then watching people come alongside you to help you.
Sounds like a lot of people.
Yeah.
How many people are involved on staff, and then how many people are attending?
Well, this is first year for us. We don't know how many people are coming. I know that at the Hobby Center, we had about 400 or 500 people that were there for just the kickoff ceremony.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Denise, how do you ensure authenticity and empowerment when centering Black voices within institutional partnerships?
We do a lot of checking, a lot of holding people to holding their feet to the fire. You know, the 10-Minute Play Festival has been our product for the last 10, 12, 13 years. Authenticity in the other art forms it's kind of under the division leader. They've been charged to make sure they bring quality programming, quality products, quality artists to the stage. And so I kind of give it to them. But I think it's all based on the objective of really doing quality work. It's our first time doing something of this magnitude. But even before that, we've always been known for a really strong production. The quality of the content has always been great. And that's why the playwrights, they come in and they submit their stuff every year because, you know, everyone can't be in Fade to Black. So knowing that and understanding this is what we have, when those division leaders talk to different artists, they say, you know, you've got to be the best of the best. You know, you've got to understand you need to hit this mark. You need to do this and that and the other so that people will come and see you. So other than that, you know, our technical division, every division is held up to a high standard because it's important that we do well. You know, people are looking at us to see how we do. Mm-hmm. Some people are cheering us on. Some people are just sitting and waiting for us to fall. I get that. We're going to do the best we can. We've started 2 years ahead of time to make sure that we've done all we can within our power to make sure our product is good. So that's where we are for now. We'll see how it goes in 2027.
Well, we're cheering for you, that's for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
So I know it runs the whole week. Mm-hmm. What are the hours from when to when?
From 8 a.m.
Right.
to 10 o'clock, and then the mixers go to 12:30.
So you really have to maybe go online and sort of pick what you want to do and how you want to
pick a
participate.
lane. You need to pick a lane, really, because some people it's just too much for them to mentally wrap around their minds, and it's discouraging to some people. And I said, don't. Just pick, what do you like? Well, I'm a music lover. I said, you got a whole festival of music things. If you love poetry, same thing. Film, you got a whole lineup every single day of things that you can do. You can get an access pass and do different things if you want, but we've simplified it for those people who really need to categorize things.
How is Fade to Black Arts different than some of the other festivals that have been around in Houston?
Well, we believe in the business model that collaboration is better than competitiveness. Mm-hmm. We've always been multicultural and inclusive. Inclusivity has been a big thing for us. So everybody is involved. Some people call and say, it's a Black festival. Can I come? I'm white. Can I come? And it's just like, what are you talking about? It's for everyone. And so it's always been a melting pot from the moment we started. Because the plays that we do talk about the human experience, and that African-American playwright might write a play that has characters of all different races and backgrounds. We cast it accordingly. Our audience is a reflection of what we have on stage, our volunteers, everyone. It's just only people who are always Black are the playwrights or the artists that are performing, and now it's just the playwrights, because the artists in the different productions include a variety of people. So I think that makes us different. I think that we have contained ourselves and tried to perfect the niche. We perfect it every year, every season. There's something new that we're learning, but we wanted to just stay there and then get bigger over time. So we're not an overnight success. We've been going for more than 10 years. This is an expansion of what we do, but there are principles about how we do things, and one of them is that, some things don't cost you anything. Starting on time on your production that doesn't cost a thing. Making sure your actors stay on mark and don't ad-lib, that doesn't cost a thing. Right, that doesn't cost anything, and so you keep doing that, and it builds a pride, it builds a standard for those artists. So I think, that keeps us different from the rest, and I think that we're good with keeping actors employed if they can't get a job at the bigger theaters, because it's just not conducive. Many times they can find a spot with Fade to Black.
Let's mention the website one more time. You can Google it, obviously. Yes. Fade to Black Fest.
Yes, fadetoblackfest.com.
Yep.
If you want to get tickets, you can go to matchhouston.org.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, really nice hearing about all of this.
Yes.
And best of luck. Awesome.
Denise O'Neal is the executive director and founder of the Fade to Black Arts Festival. Denise, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
The Fade to Black Arts Festival is running now through Saturday, June 14th. Coming up on Hello Houston, 2 hours ago, former Mayor Annise Parker announced her candidacy for Harris County Judge, and she will be here live in studio after the break to take your calls and have a chat. Stay with us. You're listening to Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Comes from Galveston Historical Foundation, celebrating Juneteenth. As Juneteenth's birthplace, visitors can explore exhibits, tours, and events honoring the legacy of freedom all month long. More at galvestonhistory.org/Juneteenth 2025.
74 degrees at the University of Houston. I'm Tiffany Taylor. High of 90 today with a 70% chance of thunderstorms across the area. This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, former Houston Mayor Annise Parker joins us live in studio to talk about her political comeback. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also speak with Danny Perez, the Public Information Officer for TxDOT, who gives us an update on the North Houston Highway Improvement Project, the planned reconstruction of I-45 North and Beltway 8, which began late last year.
And I'm Ernie Manous. Plus, we'll learn about what's in store for DACAMERA's upcoming 2025-26 season.
And we want to hear from you, so give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel. Just go to houstonpublicmedia.org and click the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Protests over President Trump's immigration policies are cropping up across the United States. NPR's Sergio Martinez Beltran reports thousands of people staged demonstrations in major cities such as Chicago, Seattle, and New York.
Outside of New York! Outside of New York!
Thousands of people marched near New York City's Immigration and Customs Enforcement field office and throughout the streets of Manhattan. These as part of a series of nationwide rallies against the Trump administration's immigration detentions and the deployment of the U.S. military in California, where police and protesters have clashed in some parts of town. The Trump administration has vowed to arrest 3,000 migrants a day. To accomplish that goal, the Department of Homeland Security has conducted raids all across the country, from a parking lot in a Los Angeles Home Depot to a Dominican neighborhood in Puerto Rico to a meatpacking plant in Nebraska. In New York City, the protest was peaceful. Sergio Martinez Beltran, NPR News, New York.
NPR's Scott Horsley says the broad national numbers don't indicate a major economic impact yet from the enforcement action, but there are a lot of anecdotal reports of economic fallout.
High-profile raids on farms and construction sites and restaurants has certainly captured attention and driven some workers into hiding. According to the Labor Department's tally, more than 1 million foreign-born workers dropped out of the labor force over the last 2 months. Now, we don't know how many of those were in the country illegally, but it's likely some people have quit going to work because they're fearful of being arrested and possibly deported.
NPR's Scott Horsley reporting. President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill calls for $45 billion to support mass deportations. The spending and tax cut legislation is pending in the Senate weeks after it passed the House. Another area of impact is Obamacare. Changes to enrollment and, crucially, premium subsidies could affect more than 24 million people. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office projects millions may lose or drop coverage by 2034. Home insurance bills are soaring, and some people are losing that coverage as the cost of weather disasters keep climbing. One solution is for homeowners to better protect their properties from various threats such as extreme storms and fires that are being fueled by climate change. Here's NPR's Michael Copley.
Homeowners in some states can get grants and insurance discounts for installing fortified roofs or fireproofing their houses. But the discounts are usually small, and the upgrades might not help you get coverage in the first place, says Dave Jones, who runs the Climate Risk Initiative at UC Berkeley Law.
If they won't write you the insurance because they're not taking into account forest treatment and they're not taking into account home hardening, the discount doesn't help you.
An industry group says insurers have had to limit coverage in some markets as costs rose, and that they'll take a hard look at what homeowners have done to protect themselves when they can grow their businesses again. Michael Copley, NPR News.
From Washington, this is NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. Former Houston Mayor Annise Parker has announced she will run for Harris County Judge next year, opposing Democrat Lina Hidalgo. Parker is a Democrat herself, so the clash will take place during the Democratic primary. Parker served as mayor between 2010 and 2016 and also served as Houston City Council member. Slow-moving storms are expected right now in Houston, leading into the afternoon, producing multiple rounds of rain, according to National Weather Service meteorologist Janice Maldonado. They're expecting an average of up to 2 inches of rain and in some areas up to 4 inches. 30 to 40 mile-per-hour winds are expected, and Maldonado says if the storms become severe, wind speeds can go up to 60 miles per hour.
If the storms become strong or severe, they might be at threat of having damaging winds and small hail. If you are closer to the coast, there is also an isolated threat of tornado or even thunderclouds today.
All of the showers are expected to be out of the area late afternoon, early evening. Another round is expected late tonight, leading into tomorrow morning. And protesters against tactics used by Immigration and Customs Enforcement are planning to gather Friday night outside of the Houston ICE detention facility located in North Houston. Mark Jones is a political science professor at Rice University. He told Houston Matters that ICE is targeting what he calls the lowest hanging fruit.
Where they know people are seeking asylum. And then if the asylum came, essentially whatever happens, often with the asylum claim essentially being dismissed, they are then taken immediately away.
Fiel Houston says the plan is to have a peaceful protest beginning at 7 p.m. Friday. This comes after agents arrested several people who showed up to hearings at immigration courts around town. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive. Progressive Commercial Auto Insurance protects the vehicles that work to keep small businesses moving forward, including protection while running errands and other tasks. At progressivecommercial.com.
From Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome to the noon hour.
We're
Hello,
back.
Houston. We are back. You know, we usually like to have a good little chit-chat here and remind people you can watch us on YouTube or you can call us at 713-440-8870. But if you were listening to the news, we're going to jump right into the top story of the day because we've got the newsmaker right here with us. Former Houston Mayor Annise Parker announced her political comeback this morning as she will run for Harris County Judge. The next election for Harris County Judge will not be on the ballot until 2026, but is already shaping up to be an interesting race, particularly in the Democratic primary, as Mayor Parker will face off against, it seems, incumbent Judge Lina Hidalgo. Hidalgo was first elected to the county chief executive in 2018. She told Houston Chronicle last year that she plans to run for a third or even a fourth term. So let's get right to it. Mayor Parker, welcome to the program.
Thanks. Glad to be back in the studio. I've been here quite a few times over the years. And let me just say, I'm a listener sponsor, and everybody who's listening ought to be sending money in. So
that's right.
Well, thank you for
public
that.
Media.
Okay, today you made big news by deciding to re-enter the arena. What led to this decision?
You know, I'll give you the tongue-in-cheek version, which is I've been retired for 3 months and too much time on my hands.
Yeah, Frank had the same problem, and he came back too.
I know how that feels.
But the serious thing is I must spent my entire adult life in some way or another in service here in Harris County as a community volunteer, as a public official, and I am scared about our future. And considering the fact that we have chaos in D.C. and a continuous drumbeat of attacks on local government from the state, we at the local level have to step it up and have to be prepared. And the things that county government is responsible for: public safety, public health, flooding through flood control. There's all going to be a big void or a big gap, if not outright assaults coming at us from Washington. We're on our own. We have to step it up. We have to do better in all of those things. And I also know that there's a generalized anxiety of folks who are concerned that the county's getting more and more expensive and it's harder to live here. So it's not a direct function of county government, but we have to figure out ways to get more housing starts on the ground.
Mm-hmm. So I assume you have concerns with the current direction the county's going, or you wouldn't be in this race.
I have greater concerns with the way our country is going and our state is going, but everything rolls downhill, and it is coming at us. And I think that I don't. You preface this by saying I was going to be running against the incumbent. I have no idea whether the incumbent's running or not. I think what we need at this moment is absolute certainty. And I'm standing and saying to the residents of Harris County, I am running. You know me. You've seen me work. I have the skill sets. I have the experience. I can do a good job with this job. Trust me, let me do it.
So, Mayor Parker, you talked about county government and what they oversee and what you would be overseeing. And you mentioned multiple things: public health, safety. What would be your priorities? What would be your top priority if you came in and were the Harris County judge?
So the fundamental difference between running the city of Houston and Harris County is that there are independent elected officials who are over these various functions. And it's not, I'm quite aware that it's not mayor. His mayor was all large and in charge. And this is an opportunity to work collaboratively with other elected officials who have to do the work. But the things I mentioned that I reeled off, those are my priorities. And you can't say law enforcement is more important than public health, is more important than flooding. And in fact, the one that there really is no substitute for Harris County and the work of the Flood Control District is keeping water out of people's homes. Because if you're not safe if there's water coming in your house. Mm-hmm. And we have been falling behind on the commitments that we made to the citizens for the money they've been giving us to do these flood control projects.
You know, we've already got a YouTube comment saying you're the first openly gay mayor of a major U.S. city, considers you an icon. You've also been heading up Victory Fund, which tries to get gay people elected across the country. And this is our question. Where is your funding? Are you going to reach out to those avenues for funding? Where's your funding going to come from for your run here?
The bulk of my funding is going to come from right here in Harris County and the broader region. But yes, I also have a national fundraising network. It supported me in my runs for mayor, and it will support me again. But if most of your money comes from outside the region, I think that's a problem. I'm going to raise a lot of money for this race. I'm not. That's not something that I'm worried about. One of the things that the 7 years that I led Victory showed me, I won't say I was discouraged about politics. I loved my opportunity to serve, but the first Donald Trump administration came after I was out of office, and was part of why I went to work for Victory. And working with entry-level candidates across the country, we only work with LGBT candidates, but it's every level of the ballot, every part of the country. So these people, city council, school board, mosquito control board, water board, these are people who are just wanting to serve their community. And I had the opportunity to refocus on what matters in politics. And it's not the chaos and the vitriol that's coming out of Washington. It's people who want to serve and do the right thing and just make life better for their neighbors. And after 7 years of seeing that and hearing that and helping promote that, and then coming home and having an opportunity to clear my mind, it was, I want to do this here in Harris County. I still have the passion, but I also have the skills, and I think those are needed.
Talk to me a little bit about what was the conversation like in the Parker Hubbard household leading up to this announcement.
I have the best political spouse you could possibly have. 34 years together. She and 11 political campaigns. This will make 12.
Wow.
She has never once said, "Why are you spending so much time at those meetings? Why are you gone so much?" Never once. She just quietly picks up the slack and makes sure that the trains run on time at the house.
Any concern?
Now the kids are not.
The kids, that's what I was going to go next. They're like, "Ma, why are you doing that?"
Our youngest is 30, so these are not kids.
Yeah.
We have 6
Where'd
grandkids.
that time go?
But that's also another. I mean, they know. I'm looking at my grandkids. The youngest is a month old, and the oldest is 7, and saying, "What kind of county are we leaving them?" They all live here, and I want to work for them too. They're less excited because I'm the primary babysitter among us. So.
Let's talk about the political landscape. 2010 versus now. Barack Obama, our first black president, you had come off of being the controller, and really we were in a huge financial mess across the country, so we needed a controller. And the fact that you were out and proud was, I think, in your favor.
More nationally than locally. I'd already been elected 6 times by the time I became mayor, and Houstonians were like, "Oh yeah, we know who she is."
Right. That's true. But now, we have state legislators that are going to try to put the 10 Commandments on the school walls and are going to get rid of gay-straight alliances in our schools. And of course, we've just heard from the Southern Baptists who want to do away with gay marriage. So the landscape, let's face it, is different.
So I just left 7 years of leading an organization that has helped elect LGBT candidates every part of the country. The right candidate in the right place with the right message, all of that falls away. Voters want to know that you understand their lives, that you have a commitment to doing what's right. And frankly, there's the conversation where people, for a lot of people, where they say, "Oh, you're LGBT, I don't approve of that. I don't support your lifestyle," whatever they say. They also say, "But you're honest about that. You're going to be honest about everything. And what I want is somebody I can depend on, even if I don't agree with you." And I'm not worried about that.
And something that you mentioned was how voters and people within Harris County do want good infrastructure and drainage, and that is a big issue that we know. What are you going to do from a long-term strategy to actually follow through with real change when it comes to infrastructure and drainage? Because I think a lot of people often in the political realm, when we look at Harris County, when we look at Houston, use that as a platform. But yet here we are again, like you said yourself. People are still experiencing flooding within their house.
So, let's be realistic. We built our this amazing region in a floodplain. It's the coastal prairie. It flooded before there was a single human being here. Everything we have done since then has exacerbated that. And we will never be able to completely manage water flow through this region, but we can do a hell of a lot better job. The voters of Harris County essentially with their votes, asked Harris County Flood Control to do some major projects. Mm-hmm. The city of Houston also is embarking on projects. There are, I believe, 34 cities within Harris County that are incorporated. They all have infrastructure, and it needs to be coordinated. It needs to work together. We can't afford to be independent islands. There has to be good communication and good handoffs, and particularly with something as dangerous as floodwaters, we can't afford to, any of the problems that I mentioned, whether it's crime, flooding, or public health, they don't stop at these artificial borders. Mm-hmm. And Harris County is the central authority in terms of dealing with those things. And of course, 2 million people who live in unincorporated Harris County that aren't in one of those in one of those cities. We are their government in Harris County.
Would you say that communication would be the gap that is needed to continue to move forward this type of change?
I bring communication skills, the ability to work collaboratively with folks at different levels of government across the aisle, but also a long-range vision for what is needed throughout Harris County. I don't know everything. What I'm looking forward to is spending the next months visiting as many different communities, associations. Now, this is a partisan race, so a lot of that is going to be Democratic clubs because the first go round is a Democratic primary. But I have my experience in the region. I have my experience as a public official, but I've also spent some time doing other things. I have a new perspective. I have new ideas. I want to know what the citizens of Harris County really need. And it's not uniform across Harris County, except those big areas affect all of us, and that's going to be my priority.
We are speaking with the former Houston Mayor Annise Parker, who has just announced her candidacy for Harris County Judge. We're interested in what you have to say, your comments, questions. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. The one thing that pops to my mind is that this primary for this particular seat isn't until March 2026. The timing of the announcement today.
In no particular magic to the timing of the announcement. The filing window opens in October and it closes in December. So this is 6 months out from the filing deadline. That's why it started. It's actually the filing deadline is December 8th, I believe.
What do you think well, let me follow up one more thing. Do you think it changes the race now that it's known you're in it? Does that make other people say, maybe not? I mean, this is Annise Parker.
Well, I hope so. but it's also
politician answer.
No, I hope so. But it's also, with all of the uncertainty in the world and all the turmoil, I'm saying, you've counted on me before. You can count on me again. Here I am. I never quit the job. I will do a good job for you, and I will run through the tape. And I think that coming out early and making that statement, I hope will give some peace of mind to folks here in Harris County. But also, if there's someone else who thinks they can do a better job, Harris County deserves our best. Show up and let's prove it.
Now, Elisa Dudd of Piney Point has entered the race. She was the first one, I believe, to come out and say she is the Piney Point mayor, and she is as well running
on the other primary,
on the Republican primary. Yes.
So you've been controller, mayor. You've also
city council member. Don't forget that.
City council member was your first, and you worked for what, Big Oil for a while?
No, actually, mostly I worked for Small Oil. I worked for Republican oil man Robert Mossbacker for 18 years,
and went to Rice. So that makes you brilliant. So let me ask you this: we've talked on this show several times about the big budget deficits for both the city and the county, and of course all the money that they want to go to law enforcement and fire departments, which no one argues with. But what would you do if you had the opportunity to fix the financial situation?
Already been faced with this opportunity and this same challenge. I took office as mayor in 2009. I ran in 2009, so came in 2010. In the middle of that recession, the right. Mortgage crisis, I laid off more than 700 people across the city. We had to slash our way through the city budget. But at that very first year in office, I went to the voters and said, and had a real conversation about flooding, and I said, we need to create a drainage fund, a dedicated drainage fee for the city of Houston, and they did it. The same conversation, we need to invest in our broken water and sewer lines, and we're going to have to figure out a way we have to pay for it. And so we adjusted water rates and put an escalator in so that we're constantly doing renewal and replacement. I'm not afraid to have real conversations with the public, and nor am I afraid to do painful things inside government. What I need over the next few months is the opportunity to really look under the hood and to figure out the situation. I can't do anything today, and it's going to be won't be until the beginning of 2027 as the new county judge where I can make these real changes. But I've already demonstrated my ability to do it and my willingness to do it. But what it's going to take is every one of the elected officials in Harris County being upfront and honest about what the real needs are and what the real challenges are. And then we have to get in the room and hash it out.
We had a text that came in that addresses that. They want to know, can she work well with current elected roles, especially the new DA and other commissioners?
You know, I don't know that I have any problem with that. I worked well with everybody in the region when I was mayor. In fact, Steve Raddick, who was former commissioner, no longer a commissioner, certainly a curmudgeon. We did a number of parks deals together where, he was passionate about parks. I'm passionate about parks. I said, would you want to take over these city parks? I'm not territorial. I just want to get the work done.
Mm-hmm. Did you talk to any
I can't say the way I usually phrase it on the air, but I just like to get stuff done.
Yeah. Did you talk to any other of the past county judges before making this decision?
Well, y'all know that I teach a class with former county judge Ed Emmett. I taught it last fall, and Bryce asked us to come back and do it again. We co-teach a class on public service and why public service matters and how important it is. So he and I have obviously talked about the job. Robert Eccles and I know each other. We've discussed the job in the past, but I didn't go and say, "Hey, I'm running." What should I do first?
Yeah. Our number here is 713-440-8870. Susan from Briar Forest has a question for the former mayor. Susan, what's on your mind?
Oh, Mayor Parker, I'm so happy that you've made this decision. One of my favorite things to remember about your prior mayorhood was your working with Ed Emmett, and it was such an important time. And it was, I think you were on two different parts of the political roller coaster, but it was so public that you worked beautifully together and got things done, as you say. So that's very exciting. And number two thing I'm thinking is it's been enough years, so I think you're going to have a lot of young people to introduce yourself to. And there's so much to know about you. But, you're going to have to get out there and tell them the story that you don't have to tell me and some of the old-timers, because I remember you, and I'm looking forward to you getting back up there.
Susan, thank you.
Doing the county.
Thanks
for your call.
Thanks for the great comments. And yes, I pride myself on being able to work together with folks. And you are absolutely right. That's why I'm starting early, to be able to have the time to go out and have the conversations. But Greg Abbott and I agree on very few things. But in an emergency, I had no problem calling on him when I was mayor, and he was responsive. I think when it comes down to it, in a crisis situation, we're all Texans, and they know that. Everybody knows that, and if they don't, I'm happy to remind them.
713-440-8870. Oliver from the Galleria, what's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing today?
What's your question?
So my question is, as a young Houstonian, young people are sick of the status quo. We want change. Why do you think you would be the candidate to bring change to the city of Houston and Harris County?
Thank you, Oliver.
Well, I have never actually run in Harris County or been an elected official in Harris County, but any new person coming in is going to offer new ideas and new energy and some new direction. But I will also say that this is the ability to get things done in politics is all about being good communication, good listening, and to be able to work with others, because you never get all you want in politics. The City of Houston mayor is the strongest strong mayor in the country. A county judge anywhere in the country, you have to work with your commissioners, and there are independent elected officials who have to be part of the conversation. So the question is, I've been out of office 10 years. I'm going to offer myself. I'm going to reintroduce myself. If you like what I have to say and you like my track record, you're going to be interested in my new ideas for Harris County. Give me a chance.
One thing that young people may not know is that you were on the front lines in this city during the AIDS crisis in the 80s, so long ago. And I only bring that up, to commend you, because you were the one that wasn't afraid to take someone in your arms and be their caregiver. But given where the state of health is in this country and vaccine boards being abolished, we could find ourselves in another COVID or HIV crisis in this city.
We could, and while I was mayor, the last flare-up of Ebola in the United States happened here in Texas. By the grace of God, it happened in Dallas instead of Houston. But that's why you need experience. You need people who understand how to manage a crisis, and we need the institutions here to be able to take up the slack if the federal institutions are going to fail us. You talked about the AIDS crisis. One of the things, we built our own institutions, the Montrose Clinic, the Montrose Counseling Center. Montrose Clinic is now Legacy Health, because we could not get what we needed from the federal government. We had to wire around it. I'm afraid we're getting into that point again.
We have another call, 713-440-8870 from Volda in the medical center. Volda, what's your question?
Hi. Understanding that Judge Hidalgo is going to run again, I would like to know what you bring that is so unique and different that justifies you running against another woman. Clearly, I'm an old feminist.
So I'm a feminist as well, and I respect any woman who wants to go into politics because it is a hard business and it is harder for women. I have no idea whether Judge Hidalgo is going to run or not. I gave her a heads up that I was going to enter into the race. And, because I don't ever sneak up on anybody or surprise anybody. I'm a very straightforward person. But in this moment, I think I have a better experience and better skill set. And I have an ability to work across Harris County in a way that I don't think anybody else has. And it's not about Judge Hidalgo or not Judge Hidalgo. It is about, I want to serve, I can do this job, and I think I can do the best job of anybody who wants to stand up and run.
Former Mayor Annise Parker, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Danny Perez, the Public Information Officer for TxDOT, about the latest on the North Houston Highway Improvement Project and more. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
The last time the Census Bureau looked, Utah was the fastest growing state in the country. Good news if you're in home construction.
We're underbuilt in Utah, and it's a desirable place for families and others to move to, and we're seeing that.
I'm Kai Risdall, keeping the roof over your head. Next time on Marketplace.
Tune in tonight at 6:30 on News 88.7.
It's one thing to love public radio, but it's a special thing to support it. Consider this. If you've got a car you don't need anymore, or you've got one that's simply too expensive to repair, you can arrange to donate it to Houston Public Media. We take any kind of vehicle in any condition. It's easy for you, pickup is free, and it could be worth hundreds of dollars in support. Visit HoustonPublicMedia.org/cars to learn more. And thanks.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8 at 7, Nature presents the ocean's greatest feast, followed at 8 by a Nova double feature looking at airport engineering and London's Supertunnel. Tonight on TV8 or stream on the PBS app.
Support comes from electricityplans.com, helping Houstonians find electricity plans based on home energy usage with tools to compare rates. Enrollment details and more at electricityplans.com.
Support comes from UT Austin's McCombs School of Business, offering the Weekend MBA at Houston. Classes held in person on alternating weekends. Group chat with admissions June 18th. Registration available at texasmba.com. Make it here.
Support comes from Signify Business Cash by Wells Fargo. With this business credit card, cardholders can earn rewards on business purchases with no caps or categories to track. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/signify. Terms apply.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
The North Houston Highway Improvement Project, the planned reconstruction of I-10 North and Beltway 8, began late last year. The controversial project is one of the largest infrastructure projects in Texas and is expected to take 18 years to complete. To tell us more about updates on the project, highway closures, and more, we welcome Danny Perez, the Public Information Officer at TxDOT. If you have questions about the North Houston Highway Improvement Project, give us a call, 713-440-8870. Danny, welcome to the program. I got lots of questions for you, but let's just start off with where are we at with this project? For the longest time, we saw lots of hearings about it, lots of back and forths about it. Is it set and moving forward? Is there still room for involvement and development in it?
So what we're doing right now, we're working on the two current projects, our drainage projects. That's getting us the preliminary projects through the downtown area. It's 3B1 and 3B2. So that's the drainage portion of these projects. That's where we're starting out. And that's going to be by the east downtown area, primarily drainage. We're working on the drainage also south of 45 near 288 and also 69. That's setting us up for the future portion of the project where we're going to rework the 288 69 interchange. So primarily right now it's going to be all drainage.
But I
right
guess
now the biggest closure we have right now is we have the Polk Street, the 69 northbound exit ramp to Polk Street closed, but that's primarily for drainage. Any working or reworking, reconstruction of the highway, that's not going to come to a later time. But right now, most of the impacts are related to the drainage work that we're doing in the downtown and east downtown area.
I guess my question, though, is the plan that will proceed set at this point, or is there still evolution of it? There was a lot of communities that were concerned. A lot of people didn't have a full understanding of what it means, what's being moved and changed. Is that already decided, or is that still being figured out?
We're still taking feedback. We're still having meetings. Primarily what we have set forth is what we're moving forward with all three segments. Segment 1, which is the segment between Beltway 8 and 610. Segment 2 is between 610 and downtown, and segment 3 is the downtown loop. But we're still taking feedback from the public. We're still having public meetings that we're having throughout the year. We had one recently at the Wortham Center, and we're still taking that feedback. So anybody has any questions or any kind of feedback they want to give us, we're taking that, and we're certainly looking at any type of issues we can address. And sometimes people bring us, whether it's impacting their property or some kind of question they have about, it could be anything from how a ramp may impact their community. We're still taking that feedback, and we're still, when we work through the design process, any kind of feedback that we can take back to our design team, anything we can look at, we're still looking at those types of tweaks. But the project is moving forward, and we're really excited about that, because it's not just addressing growth in the community. Houston is growing, but it's not just addressing the growth in the community. It's also addressing aging infrastructure. It's addressing hurricane evacuation routes. It's looking at this holistically and making sure we're addressing not just the growth of today, but the growth of the future.
And I do want to get into all of that. But before we do, just to stay with this for 1 second, when you talk about these things that impact people and where they live. I live right along where part of this is going to take place in the third section of it. And I have looked for information to know how is it going to impact my community? What is the plan for that? And I get vague ideas of it, but I find a very hard time finding this information. I live right outside of downtown. What does that mean ramp-wise? Where is the highway going to go? Where exactly is it planned? So I know if I support or don't support or want to challenge or not challenge. Where is that information for people who live all along this route, the phases 1, 2, and 3?
So we have all the information on the website. We have a website, the North Houston Highway Improvement Project website. Originally, we did have information in different places, like for the public meetings that we had different sites. We had information on social media. Now we have it at a one-stop shop. We have everything from the schematics. We have all the details, all the environmental impact statements, everything on the website, the North Houston Highway Improvement website.
And what is that address? What is that address for folks?
Let me get that for you. It's if you go, it's connected to the TxDOT website. So you go to TxDOT.gov. It's this TxDOT. TxDOT.gov and you search for NHHIP, you'll find the website there. It's or you can just do a Google search or any kind of web search and just type in NHHIP, North Houston Highway Improvement Project. You can find the website there. It has all the information there. It has timeline information. It has the preliminary. It has the preliminary design, the schematics. All the information is there. It has all the information we present at public meetings. So it also has
this is
our
a very
social media feeds
very massive project. So people will want to know where they can find out the parts that impact that.
Correct. And it also has any impacts. Like I said, I had a call earlier from a gentleman that was asking about timeline information, direct impacts to his property. That information is all on there, so you can actually see if a right-of-way line is touching that particular property. The person that called me wanted to know about any potential impacts and if it was going to impact his property, if we were going to purchase his property. All that information can be found on the website.
And I do believe that's TxDOT.gov/NHHIP.
So if you go to our
HTML.
website, so if you go to TxDOT.gov, TxDOT.gov, and then you search the website, and you can find NHHIP. But if you just do a Google search, it'll come up immediately.
You're listening to Hello Houston, and we're talking all things transportation with Danny Perez from TxDOT.
So, Danny, give me sort of a general what's going to happen. Are you trying to make I-45 North a 5-lane in both directions, kind of like you've done on the Gulf Freeway, 45 South? Is that generally where you're going?
In addition to doing some widening on I-45, we're also realigning and straightening portions of I-69. So what we're trying to do, Frank, is we're trying to straighten out some of the issues that you see. So if you're coming from, like, say, where you guys are at the UH campus, for example, you run into that bottleneck going northbound, for example. So you're trying to go to like the Woodlands or you're trying to go north, you run into a bottleneck. And this is not just about moving commuters, for example, because we get that feedback a lot. This is just about moving commuters, people that live in the suburbs. It's not just about that. It's about moving people, goods, and services. It's about moving packages. We have some freight that moves into this area. So it's about moving that as well. So we're realigning that, getting more opportunity for traffic to move through the area more efficiently. So it's addressing that growth. So it's realigning those highways. So it's not just 45 itself, but it's also 69, also 288 to the south, and straightening that. So we're going to move I-45 to the west, from the west side of downtown, for example, to the east side, and putting 45 and 69 in the same footprint, but also widening 45 north of downtown. So you'll have more lane capacity, but we're also improving the flow of traffic. So it's not just a widening, but it's also improving the traffic flow, adding additional capacity for HOV, for bus capacity, but it's also adding capacity for freight and getting traffic moving through here more efficiently. There's a lot of traffic that goes through here. That's not just commuter traffic, but also a lot of freight that travels through here on a regular basis. So it's getting those goods and services that travel through here more efficiently, the 18-wheeler traffic that travels through here, but also when we have evacuations, getting that traffic moving when we have a disaster situation that's in, like, hurricane evacuation situation. But like I mentioned earlier, it's also when we have a situation with with traffic that needs to get through here. We have aging infrastructure that dates back. Some of it dates back to the 50s and 60s. So it's not just about widening freeways and getting to get more traffic and more commuter traffic through here, but it's also replacing the aging infrastructure. We're spending lots of money on maintenance on a regular basis. We're having to replace pavement, and so it's not just about widening freeways, but it's also aging that infrastructure that dates back to sometimes to the 50s and 60s and to the 70s. So replacing that infrastructure is really, really important because it's definitely reached its shelf life.
All right, we're talking to Danny Perez of TxDOT. If you have a question for Danny, 713-440-8870. So what's the biggest objection you guys are hearing? Just that you're taking land from people?
That, and also people want us to move. They want us to improve traffic flow, but they don't want construction. They don't want the flow. and it's kind of a double whammy for us at times, but we do let them know we want to work. We want to make sure we're keeping them informed, working with the public, because this is not going to be the only project. Obviously, we have, for example, we have a future Grand Parkway project that's coming up in the Brazoria County and Galveston County area. So we have many projects that are coming up, but it's addressing the growth. I drive down. I'm also the public information officer for TxDOT in the Brazoria County and Galveston County areas. We have growth coming up in Montgomery County. When you drive to these areas are growing. There's areas that used to be just farmland, and now we're seeing development in these areas. So it's just everywhere you're going, there's development. So we have many projects that are ongoing, but it's the core of the city. People are coming here. Every time I'm driving myself, I'm a motorist myself. I'm seeing license plates from all over the country. I'm seeing plates from New York, from California, from Michigan. Just today, I saw a license plate from Louisiana and from different states. And these are people that are coming, that are moving here because it's a great.
Let me jump in here. Estimates indicate over 1,000 residents and hundreds of businesses would be affected. How are the owners being supported? What are you doing for those folks?
So definitely So a lot of our projects we work with the business owners to minimize the impacts and keeping them engaged. And working with them is really, really important. So there's things that we can do to keep them afloat, making sure we're not impacting their property. So for instance, when we're doing construction and if they have a driveway impact, we're making sure, like, if they have 2 driveways, for example, keeping 1 driveway open, and then also helping them with signage and helping them to make sure that we're addressing their concerns. We have multiple projects throughout our 6 counties. Throughout the 6-county Houston district that we were working with making sure we're not impeding their business, and if there's something we can do to increase or improve construction time and efficiency, we're working on that. Get out of those locations as quickly as possible. So if there's something we can do to if we have a major closure, for example, we're minimizing those closures. If there's work we can do at night, for example, that's not during regular business hours, so we're not impacting those businesses, we do that.
I have a quick question. Danny, when is I-45 south to Galveston going to be done?
We're working. We have multiple projects, Frank, so we're working on that. That's really, really important because that is a hurricane evacuation route, obviously, for folks in the Galveston County area. So that's why we're working to get. There are multiple projects. It's not a single project, so we're knocking those out as quickly as possible. We are working on 45 all the way from. We started really at the Harris County, Galveston County line, and we knocked out the 2 projects in the Leak City area. We're continuing that progress down into Dickinson, Lamarck, and then we're going to work all the way down to the Galveston Causeway.
Oh, I know.
Once we finish those,
I know.
Take me back.
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but take me back into downtown, the Pierce Overpass. A lot of talk about that. If people wanted it redeveloped, it has to be a separate group, has to raise money to do it. What is going to happen to that structure? What is the plan?
That would depend on if there's an outside entity. We're not in any kind of business to create if someone wanted to create like a park or similar to what you would have in New York City, where they create like a green space. That would be a separate entity that we.
But the plan for it itself, from where you sit, is just tear it down. It just ceases to exist. It just stands there empty. What happens to it?
There's different opportunities. There's different things we can work on. We've not entered any kind of official negotiations because we're not there yet. But there are all kinds of possibilities. There's been some ideas presented to us, so we're open to listen. We want to be good stewards of taxpayers' dollars. We want to make sure that we're working with the community. So there's been different ideas that have been presented to us. So we're open to any kind of ideas. I think as somebody that's grown up and been born and raised in Houston, I think it would be a really nice idea to have a green space. So I'm sure that's something that we would be open to if somebody presented the right idea.
Let me jump in again. 713-440-8870. We have Susan from Briar Forest on the line with a question for you. Susan, what's on your mind?
I have a question about the highways that TxDOT has responsibility for, and the signage that is over them. The big green signs. They're consistent throughout Houston highways, but to the extent that TxDOT has responsibility for those signs, the green is falling off. Many of them are illegible, especially at nighttime, and they are really a safety hazard. I don't have to drive at night very often. When I do, I have a really hard time making out what they say. They need fixing.
Thank you, Susan. Danny, any comment to that?
Absolutely. So we have several major contracts we're working on right now. We are working through those signs. We're replacing them. It is a major undertaking. We're working primarily in the evening time. We're hitting all the different freeways. Recently, we did some major freeway sign replacements on State Highway 146. We're working through them. It is it's a very intense process. We have to take these signs might not look so big when you're driving underneath them, but they're pretty massive. Mm-hmm. They're quite massive. So we're taking them down. And it is a process. We have to take them down, but we are replacing them. So eventually
we have another call in from Diane from West Houston. Diane, what's on your mind?
Hi, this is just a comment. When I moved to Houston, there was a picture in the paper, and it showed a man who had started his career on highway construction and retired his career in highway construction, all on 45 South.
Yep.
All on 45 South. And it's still not done.
And it's still not done.
Diane, thank you for that. There is a lot to consume on this. You can find out more on your folks' website at TxDOT. 18 years we're thinking this is going to take?
Yes. So it's separate projects. There's different mechanisms in place for each project, and some of the segments are broken down into sub-segments. So it's going to take some time. We're looking at 2038 for this to be all completed, but it's definitely going to take the city into a great direction. It's going to take us to where we'll see improved mobility, and when we're working with our partners with Harris County, with the city of Houston, and we're not just using concrete to address growth in this city. We're also using a lot of technology, working with our partners, of course, with Houston Transtar. We're looking at all kinds of different options and improving mobility in the city of Houston. We're looking at some options for the future and addressing growth, because we're going to continue to see that growth in the city. So we're looking at other options as well.
Danny Perez is a public information officer for TxDOT. Danny, thanks for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
After the break, we'll talk about DACAMERA's upcoming season. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
I want to make a movie about this.
The Arts Hour brings you film.
The themes in it are so far ahead of their time.
Books.
The detail is amazing.
Art.
There's all the personal stuff.
Theatre.
Lots of singing and dancing and colours.
Music.
The dance floor is made for dancing.
And everything in between.
I want it to be exciting.
That's the Arts Hour with me, Nikki Beatty.
I really identified with it.
From the BBC.
The Arts Hour, Friday nights at 9 on News 88.7.
As disasters get more intense, home insurance is getting more expensive, and many homeowners are retrofitting their houses, like strengthening their roofs, to reduce their risk and insurance premiums.
That's a big incentive. I mean, homeowners insurance now has been through the roof because of the storms we've had through here.
How some states are trying to help homeowners on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 3 on News 88.7.
Support comes from Miller Outdoor Theater, presenting the Juneteenth Culture Fest this Friday, featuring celebrations of freedom and culture with live gospel, blues, and R&B. This Friday. More at milleroutdoortheater.com. Support comes from Artec House with Rolling Stone Presents Amplified, the immersive rock experience, highlighting the history of rock and roll and featuring over 300 artists whose music changed the world. Tickets at artechouse.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Your mic was on when you said that.
I'm so clever.
We're talking about how to say DACAMERA.
Yes, and what
Look
was
at
your
DACAMERA.
Look at DACAMERA.
It's Italian.
DACAMERA is the Houston-based producer and presenter of chamber music and jazz concerts. Last week, they announced their 2025-26 season, which will open on Friday, October 3rd, and embraces the theme Other Worlds, the transporting power of music. To tell us more about what we can expect from DACAMERA's new season is Brandon Bell, General Manager of DACAMERA. Welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you
with
us.
Raise your hand.
There we go. DACAMERA, one of the big seven in downtown. We talk about the theater district, and they're one of the folks that are part of that. Tell me a little bit about how you fit into that, and then let's talk a little about the season.
Yeah, so I have to say we have really great colleagues downtown, and it's actually Team 8 now, inclusive of the Hobby Center as well.
Good.
We've grown.
Amazing.
But yeah, so DACAMERA, we are a chamber music and jazz presenter. We kind of fill a niche in Houston. We're kind of the center for jazz in Houston, and we bring the world's greatest jazz artists to Houston and chamber musicians as well. It's a really unique series that is curated by our longtime artistic director, Sarah Rothenberg. We present concerts, as you mentioned, downtown at the Wortham Center and the Hobby Center. And then we have a very special series at the Menil Collection as well that we're very fortunate to have that partnership for over 30 years now.
So you've announced the new season. What should we be most excited for?
I have to say, this is
All
which
of
is
it?
your favorite kid? Yeah.
Right.
No, I mean,
my mom could tell you which one.
Yeah,
but-
well, same. I think we have a really outstanding lineup that we've put together. We're doing a deep dive into the composer Franz Schubert. I feel like in Schubert's music, there's such sublime beauty that maybe we need in the world today. Yes. So we're doing 3 concert series called Schubert Perspectives. And actually, our opening concert of the season is kind of an overture to the season that will have some Schubert on it, his famous Trout Quintet. And then over the course of the season, we'll have 3 additional concerts where we explore some of his string quartets. And then we'll also have Matthias Gerner and Daniil Trifonov, who Daniil is my favorite living pianist. He'll be here in late October, and they'll be doing a Schubert song cycle, and Trifonov will do a TBD piano sonata as well.
Yeah.
So that'll be exciting.
Not to bury the lead or anything like that. People want to find out everything in your season schedule. Where can they go?
DACAMERA.com. That's DACAMERA.com.
Good to know. In addition to presenting, and I'll let you go back if there's other things you want to highlight, but I'm also curious, as an organization, it's more than just presenting shows. There's education, there's enrichment into the community. Talk a little bit about that. Yeah,
so we have a really robust Education and Community Initiatives Department. Kind of the engine of that department is the DACAMERA Young Artist Program. I was actually, a long time ago, I was a DACAMERA Young Artist, and the company line is that I met my wife in the DACAMERA Young Artist Program. So it's very meaningful for me. But our young artists, they're out in countless schools. We have around 60 community partners in a given season. We have a custom curriculum that we've developed that we take into classrooms called Music Encounters, and we use music as a vehicle to teach core curriculum subjects. So we're using music to teach math, to teach science, to teach ELA. So we're doing all of that in the community, free community concerts. We have around 20 main stage concerts, and then each season we do around 500 education and community events.
Wow. Now, Brandon, what instrument do you play?
Percussion. I'm a retired percussionist.
Retired. You don't smash things around anymore and think, wait, I can get back into this.
No, I'm good. It's the shuffling of the gear that finished me.
So what are you most excited about this season?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. I love our jazz series. I think one of the really cool things we're going to do is we open our jazz series on October 17th with a concert called Three of Us Are From Houston, Reuben Is Not. That's Walter Smith III. He's a saxophonist. He's bringing a band together that is him, Jason Moran, the great pianist, amazing drummer, Kendrick Scott, all of 3 of whom are PVA graduates.
Beautiful.
So it's appropriately titled, 3 of us from Houston. Ruben is not. Ruben Rogers is the bass player. We won't hold it against him that he's not from H-Town because he's a fabulous musician. So that's a lot of fun. We'll have Branford Marsalis Quartet, amazing jazz saxophonist. Pat Metheny, the greatest living jazz guitarist.
Really quick before we run out of time, one thing that people aren't going to pay attention to that you think everyone should in your season.
The world premiere of a new string quartet called Frida's Dreams by Gabriella Lena Frank. That is in February of next season. It's going to be tied to the exhibition on Frida Kahlo at the MFAH.
And you can find out all of it at DACAMERA.org.
Yep. February 20th.
DACAMERA.com.
Brandon Bell is the general manager of DACAMERA. Brandon, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of our show. We want to thank you for listening, chatting, engaging with us today on Hello Houston. We'll be back tomorrow with more conversation. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 1 o'clock.